Welcome to Money Talks with Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte is now en route to The Hague following his arrest ordered by the ICC. What does it mean for business sentiment in a midterm election year? The Philippines' most vote-rich province, Cebu, gears up for faster economic growth. We speak with the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And move over Arabica. The Barako of Batangas lures coffee drinkers in Europe. We'll have more from the upcoming Biyaya Festival. Former President Rodrigo Duterte is now on his way to The Hague in the Netherlands to face his case of crimes against humanity filed before the International Criminal Court. Duterte was arrested at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport upon his arrival from Hong Kong. He was then taken to Villamor Air Base together with his family and lawyers before boarding a chartered flight to the Netherlands. His plane took off at a little past 11 p.m. Manila time. Earlier on his flight from Hong Kong, Duterte was informed about the warrant for his arrest.
A warrant of arrest. So, you will just have to kill me. Kung hindi ako papayag, kung kakampi ka dyan sa mga puti.
We're just going through the process.
Kaya nga.
Late last night, President Bongbong Marcos held a press conference and he denied that the arrest was politically motivated, saying that the case dates back before he was in office. He also clarified the government was only cooperating with the Interpol, not the ICC.
But this case started in 2017 when we were still members of the ICC. And it was during the time of former President Duterte. So I don't see how that can be political persecution on my part because it was initiated before I even came into the picture. The arrest that we did today was in compliance with our commitments to Interpol. It just so happened that that came from ICC. But it's not because it came from ICC. It's because it came from Interpol.
Meanwhile, the Global Commission on Drug Policy, led by former New Zealand Prime Minister Helen Clark, released a statement following Duterte's arrest, urging the governments worldwide to reflect and to reject policies that, quote, prioritize punishment over progress. The statement also reads that the GCDP stands with the victims of EJKs and reaffirmed the Commission's commitment to, quote, promote humane, effective responses to drug-related issues through international dialogue and evidence-based advocacy. Former President Duterte's plane is expected to land in the Netherlands tonight, Manila time. Our guest says the former president's arrest and Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment may likely define this electoral cycle. With us now for more is Aris Arugay, visiting senior fellow and coordinator, Philippine Studies Program at the IZAS Yusof Ishak Institute. So good to see you, Aris. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Cathy.
Yeah, you know, like you say, and the markets and economists would agree with you, it's an election year. So typically a good year for the economy. But how might Duterte's arrest now possibly define this electoral cycle?
Right. The arrest seems to be on track to becoming a key electoral issue. Prior to yesterday, it seems like it is the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte that will be the critical, if not one of the critical, if not the critical issue for the elections. But now that has been, I think, superseded by the possible political consequences of Duterte's ICC arrest. While the markets, as I've said, are optimistic given that it's an election year and there seems to be more spending and there's a lot of money going around because of consumption and spending during elections, I think the ICC arrest could possibly heighten political risk a little bit. We still have yet to see whether the repercussions will spill over to political instability. But I think so far, the government in power right now seem to be monitoring developments and will try to reduce and mitigate political risk as much as it can.
And that political risk won't mean a sour business sentiment, as it already is because of the global political uncertainty because of Trump. But before this took place, Aris, both President Marcos and Duterte had been trading barbs on the campaign trail. So how does the game change now? Because it's no longer just ballots on May 12th and Sara's impeachment, but Duterte's arrest.
Yes, definitely, because supposed to be the midterm elections is an informal political referendum on the popularity and acceptance of the government of the day, which is the Marcos Jr. administration. But I think given the arrest of Duterte, a lot will be monitoring to what extent government could be focused on achieving its proposed economic agenda. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done in realizing the campaign promises of Marcos Jr., who posed himself as an economic manager and one that will lead the country to middle income, if not upper middle income status. So the politics that seem to be defining the news cycle right now, I think needs to be reduced and mitigated in order for the country to be more focused on getting some work done. So I really think that all this political drama needs to be decreased a little bit, and that because there's a lot of homework that still needs to be finished.
Well, as for the Philippine markets, they have been undeterred. The markets did fall for the first in 7 sessions yesterday, but not because of Duterte's arrest, but because of the growing recession fears in the U.S. as Trump carries on with his tariff threats. Japheth Tantiangco, PhilStocks Financial, just told us there are no significant effects seen on the economy or its outlook unless, and he nuances this by saying, unless it results in a prolonged and escalated political turmoil. So what are the chances of a prolonged and escalated political turmoil? What would be the catalyst for that?
Right. Kathy, the last time a popular former president got arrested, which was former President Joseph Estrada, it resulted in People Power 3. It resulted with what I call a lost decade for Philippine democracy from 2001 to 2010. We really didn't move the needle in terms of political stability and economic development. So I do think that that prospect is still there, given that the Duterte still has a lot of following, a lot of support. We see this in social media. There's already some groundswell of popular mobilization in Davao that could reverberate to other urban centers of the country, including Manila. We'll have to see because we've been there, and it's gonna be quite unfortunate if we keep on repeating history and instead of getting politics correct so that our economic would also be on the right track.
Well, more moving parts to watch then for the markets. Thank you so much, Professor Aris Arugay of ICAS Yusof Ishak Institute, joining us from Manila. And coming up here on Money Talks, Alex Yatko of Regina Capital will talk more about the markets. And Philippine coffee farms won an award in France. More on this story after the break. Keep it here on Money Talks on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. U.S. President Donald Trump meets with about 100 CEOs to defend the wave of tariffs he imposed on America's largest trading partners. Trump said on Monday, while tariffs rattled global markets and prompted stock sell-offs, they will have a positive impact over time. In attendance during the Business Roundtable meeting include the CEOs of Apple, JP Morgan Chase, and Walmart.
Having a tremendously positive impact. They will have, and they are having. We have car companies that are not building in Mexico now. They're building in the United States. Some of them, the plants were already started, and they stopped construction, and now they're going to build in the United States. It was very unfair that they'd build in Mexico and sell them across the border with no tax, no nothing. They'd take away our jobs. They'd close up places in Michigan and all over the country. And
on Monday, Trump ramped up his trade war with Canada by vowing to double tariffs on imported steel and aluminum products to 50%. The threat was a response to the decision of the province of Ontario in Canada to impose a 25% export tax on electricity as retaliation to Trump's earlier tariffs levied on Canada. Later in the day, the White House walked back from its pledge and said that metal tariffs would remain at 25% after Canadian officials agreed to talks. Ontario also backed off with its electricity tax after holding a phone call with the U.S. Commerce Secretary. Let's take a look at how the markets have reacted following another day of tariff whiplash. U.S. markets have capped another tumultuous session, closing lower. You can see the down arrows there. The Dow Jones down by about 1%, S&P 500 falling by about 0.7%, and the tech-heavy NASDAQ falls by about 0.2%. Now let's take a look at the NASDAQ to see how the U.S. markets have seesawed throughout the day. See that slippery slide there? On that chart, Trump's broadsides against Canada in the morning sent the NASDAQ down. And by the afternoon, with Washington announcing the resumption of military aid to Ukraine, the NASDAQ went up. But the tech-heavy index still closed in the red by 0.2%. Let's take a look at U.S. futures and see what that's indicating. Markets are going to open on Wednesday, local time on the rise now with the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ up by about 0.2%. Let's get a little closer now to the Asian markets and see how they're opening Wednesday, mostly higher, breaking ranks with Wall Street, except for the ASX 200, which is about down. Korea's Kospi and Japan's Nikkei 225 are both up. The ASX is down by nearly 1.5%, with investors monitoring the release of February inflation figures in India, expected to slow by about 4% for a Reuters poll. Let's take a look at the local markets amid the political instability following Duterte's arrest. The PSE down for a second straight session in the first 14 minutes of trading, about 0.5% at 6,173. The market fell yesterday, Tuesday, by about 2.5%, mainly because of recession fears. But analysts also see the plunge as a knee-jerk reaction to Duterte's arrest. As for the Philippine peso, it's open Wednesday weaker at 57.30 to the dollar. The peso closed yesterday stronger against the dollar at 57.23 against the greenback. And Philippine shares have fallen a second straight session following a lower close Tuesday, the first decline in 7 sessions. With us now for more is Alex Yatco, equity analyst at Regina Capital Development Corporation. Good to see you, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting.
So how's the sentiment of the stock market looking at the get-go now, and what are the catalysts?
Well, it's a combination of some of the previous factors that were mentioned earlier. There is political tension and instability that was triggered by former President Duterte's arrest, as well as recession fears sparked by Trump's current tariff policies. So in terms of yesterday, we were able to see investors reacting to the news of Duterte's arrest by prompting a sell-off, as investors were seeing signals of increasing political instabilities as well. And we were able to see potential foreign investors reacting to this news as well, because they were able to view our country and its escalating tensions. So it may continue to weigh upon investor confidence and our current market. So we see the current downward pressures on these stock prices, as we also saw that our index closed around 2.4% down yesterday.
It's a lot more moving parts, as I was telling Professor Aris earlier. Post-departure, I just got this commentary from Josh Matthew Bailon of First Resources. He did say that it could leave a cautious approach among investors because the country may be divided, which is prone to uncertainty. So how long might this uncertainty last, and what could break it down the line?
So, in terms of the certain uncertainty, we see that this instability surrounds high profile figures, since former President Duterte still has several supporters that we see nowadays, and a potential deterrent for foreign investors to pour their money into the Philippines, as investors typically look for more stable environments in order to invest their their money. They look for more predictable or more stable economic landscapes. However, this may be short term, as investors may tend to and use this as a knee-jerk reaction rather to the news yesterday. And we see that there are several factors as well that could support further long-term growth in the economy, such as the full-year corporate earnings and our current GDP, our USD to peso conversion rate, and also our inflation rate, which came out around 2.1% last February, which was better than most of the consensus agreements as well. So this may support an outlook on long-term growth
And
for
this is
the
a great
for the
decision,
market.
Alex, if I may add, which is now on April 10th. They've moved it from April 3rd to the 10th, so they could still decide on how to decide, because a lot more data points are going to come between the 3rd and the 10th.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
The Bangko Central, how do you think they will decide on April 10th?
Well, investors are quite divided on the upcoming meeting of the BSP, but the majority are actually pushing for a rate cut, since the recent news in January or February was with the BSP holding the rate cut. But as we look at our GDP figures and we look at our inflation rates, we can see that there's more of a greater motivation for the central bank to actually cut rates now and then. And with recent news also indicating that there may be more rate cuts this year than initially expected due to the recent political and economic news as well.
Well, that could be the catalyst or catalysts that markets are looking for. Thank you so much, Alex Yatco of Regina Capital Development Corporation, joining us live. And the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas plans to take baby steps in cutting interest rates this year. Bangko Sentral Governor Eddie Remolona says the February inflation slowed more than forecast, falling below the forecast range. He also said it was a good miss. The Monetary Board's policy meeting was moved from April 3 to April 10 to consider March inflation data, which will be released on April 5. Remolona says rate cuts are still possible, but will likely be gradual. The Bangko Sentral is considering 3 scenarios: a measured pace of cuts, a hawkish scenario with fewer cuts, and a dovish scenario with more aggressive easing. He said a 25 basis point cut is the preferred approach, but if the economy worsens, a 50 basis point or larger cut is possible. Meanwhile, despite speculation, he ruled out a drastic 100 basis point cut this year. You're watching Money Talks in One News. Up next, we'll talk about Cebu's economic growth. Stay with us. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. The Philippines' most vote-rich province, Cebu, aims to deliver faster growth this year despite the local and global uncertainties. With us now for more is Jay Uvallos, newly elected president of the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Maayong buntag, Jay. Good to see you and congratulations.
Mayong buntag, Cathy. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me in your program.
So your first order of business, call to action, emphasizing on global competitiveness. How are you working towards that with Cebu's enterprises, the business community, and the people, with the global uncertainty that we face right now?
Yeah, I think for the Cebu Chamber of Commerce industry, we are really just going back to basics. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot of uncertainty in the US and the world, and also here locally. So we are just true to our vision, which is to be the engine of Cebu's business growth towards global competitiveness. And for us, that means to be globally competitive, we need to have world-class enterprises, world-class business community, and world-class people. Anything less, we cannot be globally competitive.
Right, but how do you deal, Jay, with the uncertainty over President Trump, the tariff threats? To what extent are Cebu's exporters as well as importers preparing for what could mean increased costs to produce?
Yes, I think right now, as I said, the policy pronouncements, especially in the U.S., domestically and with its neighbor, it created a lot of maybe fear and speculation. But for us, it's really hard to speculate right now. So we're just bracing for whatever may come to us, especially our supporters. So it's a wait and see attitude right now.
A wait and see where we're hoping that there would be more foreign investors, because when I speak with economists, they say the better option is really to bring in the foreign investments to cushion the impact. What is Create More IRR doing at this stage to encourage a lot more businesses to come to the Philippines, especially Cebu?
Well, the IRR has just been signed, I think, a couple last month, right? So the chamber is doing awareness campaign and information dissemination, especially to the MSMEs. For the bigger companies, I think they are going to make sure that they leverage on its salient points and benefits for them. For the investment side, for the chamber, we are really doing an internationalization push. We made 2 trips this year so far to Japan, looking at the Osaka and the Tokyo markets. We are going to do another roadshow there for the creative industries this coming towards the end of the month. And we're going to have strong participation in the expo, on the side events of the Philippine Pavilion and the World Expo.
So when you go to these roadshows, Jay, what are you promoting? Which industries?
It's very targeted, like, for example, later this month, it's the creative entertainment industry here in Cebu. There's a lot of interest from the Japanese market on the, for example, the manga and the animation, because we made an inventory in the chamber on what are the strengths, what do we have in Cebu in terms of the creative entertainment industry. And we were surprised that we have outfits here who are already doing subcontract work for Japanese companies in this space. So for the MICE industry, meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions market, we have also organized our MICE industry here. And in the next few months, we're going to look at the different markets wherein we have direct flights in Cebu. You know, we want to leverage on our very beautiful airport here in Cebu. And we're looking at the direct flights because connectivity and the ease of coming in is a strategic advantage for Cebu as a MICE destination.
Got it. A lot on your plate, Jay. Thank you so much for joining us and for laying out the plan of action for Cebu. Jay Uvalles there, the president of Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Dagang salamat.
Thank-
And coffee farms hailing from Mountain Province to Batangas to Sultan Kudarat won in an international contest in France. These are featured in the Biyaya Sustainable Living Festival, which will happen from March 14 to 16 in Parañaque. Festival director Rich Watanabe gives us a glimpse of what to expect in this year's event.
So we had 6 editions of the Manila Coffee Festival from 2019 up to last year. This year, we've moved to call it Biyaya Sustainable Living Festival because we're including a lot more of what our communities are producing. So we have coconuts, cacao, and they also weave while they're waiting for the harvest, our coffee growers. And so we said, okay, let's get them all in the festival, and we'll expand the festival. And we feel like all of these things that comes out from our communities are blessings. So we call it the Biyaya. This year, we have 4 international coffee winning from our coffee growers. They are Sagada, Sultan Kudarat, and for the first time in 188-year history of Barako coffee, it won an award.
From which part of the country? From
Batangas.
From Batangas?
Yes, from
Oh my
Batangas,
goodness.
yes.
And how was this received?
So the awarding of these recognitions will be made at the Biyaya Festival. If I may share how much our coffee growers and our producers made last year from the festival, it was at 45 million pesos for the 3-day festival. So everybody came out to support. We're so happy, and I hope they all come out to support again this year for our weavers, our crafters, basket makers, all to be found at the Biyaya Biyaya Festival.
And that is Rich Watanabe, director of Biyaya Sustainable Living Festival, talking to me earlier. Now we have this news just in. Vice President Sara Duterte has departed from Manila this morning at around 7:40 a.m. via Emirates flight number EK337 bound for Amsterdam. Stay tuned to One News throughout the day to get the latest on this developing story. And that is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. here on One News. We're also streamed live on YouTube and on our Facebook channels. If you haven't done so, like and follow my social media pages. Have a great day ahead.